Hi, I'm Caitlin and I'm here to teach you all the basics you need to know on how to take a great photo. Today I'll be using the Canon EOS RP. You can purchase one of these online or at our store, and if you're watching on YouTube, I'll put a link in the description below to our entire camera selection on app.com. First and foremost, if you want to take a great photo, you want to utilize the rule of thirds when thinking about the composition of your shot. The principle of the rule of thirds is to imagine breaking down an image into thirds, both vertically and horizontally. Placing your subject on one of these lines makes for a more interesting and visually stimulating photo and keeps your photo well balanced. Leading lines are also something to look for when taking photos. Leading lines are anything in the environment that already has some kind of linear structure. Placing subjects on a leading line creates an illusion where the element is pointing towards the subject, making the image more interesting. Another tactic you can use to make your photos more compelling is layering. Layering is when you use elements in the foreground to assist in making your photos more intriguing. You can use layering to frame your subject, to emphasize size or scale, or to balance out the rest of your photo. When incorporating layering, you'll want to make sure you place the layering element closest to the camera. You also want to make sure the exposure on your layering element matches the exposure on your subject and the exposure on your background. Once you have your composition set, it's time to get shooting. If at any point you want to change your composition, instead of zooming in or making your subject move, just move your feet. You can move closer or further away from your subject, or try moving in a horseshoe-like pattern around the subject to get different angles of the shot. When it comes to camera settings, you'll want your shutter speed to be double your focal length. So if I'm shooting with a 50mm lens, you want your shutter speed to be 1/100th of a second or faster. I like to shoot using at least 1/125th of a second to be safe and prevent unwanted blur. If you want your subject to be in focus and your background blurred out, you'll want to use a wider aperture, which is a lower number. For this photo, I'm going to use an aperture of 1.8. The last setting to update is ISO. You'll increase this based on if you need more light for your photo. You can also use a filter depending on your shooting scenario. There are 3 types of basic lens filters: UV, polarizing, and neutral density. If you want more information on which filter to use, be sure to watch the video we did on lens filters, which I'll link in the description. Once your settings are balanced, you'll see this little triangle here on the meter is directly in the middle. That means your shot is exposed correctly and you are ready to shoot. I like shooting in manual mode on the camera with my lens set to auto. This gives me more freedom with my settings in camera, but allows for easier focus. You can focus on your subject by half pressing the shutter or by using back button focus while your lens is on auto. You can go full manual mode if you'd like and focus on your own for each photo, but that does take a little bit more time, which is why I like having my lens on auto. I use these buttons on the back of the camera while looking through my viewfinder to choose my focal point. I'll move the focal point so that I'm focusing on the eyes of my subject. If I have more than one subject, I focus on the eyes of the person closest to me. It's important to make sure if you're shooting multiple people that they're all in the same plane, so you won't get one person in focus and another completely out of focus. Once I set my focal point, I lock focus and click. Another thing to note is you want to be shooting your subjects at their level. If you're shooting from too high or too low, you could get unwanted shadows or unflattering camera angles, so it's best to remain at the level of your subject whenever possible. So to recap, compose your image using techniques like the rule of thirds, leading lines, and layering. Get your exposure settings correct using the exposure triangle, set your focus, and snap away. Make sure you check out our other video on the exposure triangle to learn more about the 3 settings that give you the perfect exposure for your photos. If you have any other questions about the basics of taking a great photo or the cameras we carry, please feel free to reach out to us by phone, email, or chat with one of our experts online. Keep developing those camera skills, and I'll see you in the next one.